Hey, what's up, everybody? Locked On Badgers. Great show today. We got the dynamic duo from Wisconsin Sports Heroics, Dylan and Ben, coming on. We're going to talk about the 2023 recruiting class, the two new commits, and also get into a little bit of a big basketball visitor that's coming up that we think may have a chance to jump onto the bandwagon. All that and more in today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Ryan Herring's your host on Locked On Badgers, your first listen every day for all your Badgers basketball, football news. Thank you so much for joining us, free and available wherever you get Badger or wherever you get podcasts. And we're going to jump right into the show. Like I said, we have Dylan Buboltz and Ben Spearing, Wisconsin Sports Heroics, joining the show. We're going to bring them on now. And here we are. Gentlemen, thank you guys for jumping on. We're going to start off with some football news as we talked about. Two commits recently. Guys, I just want to kick it over to you. We talked about this a little bit on our show yesterday. Keys and Taylor. Dylan, let's start with you. What are your big picture thoughts here?
Well, first of all, Ryan, I'd like to thank you for having me on. A big fan of the Locked On Badgers podcast. Really excited to be on with you today. What I like most about Jaquez Keys is that he mentions, from everything I've read, how special the place Madison was when he took his visit. I think he said something along the lines of, something special is brewing here, and it's something that he wants to be a part of. I also like that not only does Wisconsin think of him as more of like a power back, but he does have speed as well. I believe he did have a 4.5 40. So I think he can bring a little bit of everything to the backfield. So I think the tools and tangibles that he has would make him really look good in a Badger uniform. He's also said, too, that he knows how well Wisconsin develops running backs, and he's willing to be patient on that. So I think he's got the right mindset, and he just screams Badgers, in my opinion.
Ben, what's up, man? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great pickup. We got it's a 3-star player, like Dylan kind of mentioned, a kind of a big back, a guy that can really ride, kind of a all game long. He can really make you work for every single yard, and then all of a sudden hit you with a big run. And it reminds me a lot, just like the kind of style that Braylon Allen brings, to have a big back like that, that can still provide some good speed, the ability to break some tackles. It's, to me, just a great fit for Wisconsin. And like Dylan said, the attitude is there too. So bringing in a commit that's all in, that's right up Wisconsin's alley.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys about Keys, actually both these prospects in general, but Keys, is he, and I don't say this trying to diminish the recruit, but when you have a guy coming in without a big offer list, and I think he's fast enough, but I don't think he has electric speed. Is he more of a high floor, maybe lower ceiling guy to you? Or do you think he could be the complete 3-down back at Wisconsin?
I know for myself, I would kind of view it as he kind of is probably going to be, like you kind of mentioned, that high floor, kind of low ceiling type. But I think he can bring you exactly what you are looking for a back. It's not necessarily like Wisconsin is going to have multiple backs. They like to use multiple backs when they can. I know last year was a little bit different because of injuries, and so we were looking at Braylon Allen a ton. But I think if you can have a guy that can give, essentially those first few downs and then look at a different back to come in to maybe provide you something in the passing game, that's where I think Keys is going to be the most effective.
Yeah, I would agree with Ben. I don't know if we're going to necessarily see Keys as being that 3-down back, but obviously I think he knows enough about Wisconsin that, it is more of a multiple backs, bringing in a fresh body, every few plays. And he's got the ability, as we said before, to, break speed and to essentially, be the power back. So, yeah, I don't necessarily see him as that full 3-down back, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't have the potential to do that if injuries were to happen. But I would agree with Ben on all that.
Let's pivot to Taylor. So Justin Taylor is the other commit coming in. And I want to start with this question because I think this ties in with both of them. When we get a commit relatively early in the cycle, because it's still pretty early in the cycle for the Badgers in this recruiting season, but he doesn't have a lot of offers. Neither of these commits are coming in with big-time power offers, right? So now Keys has a couple, Taylor, but these aren't gigantic offer lists. Does that give you guys pauses, or are we at the spot of the cycle where it's trust the staff? It's still early. These are Plan A guys.
I know for like a lot of these guys, it seems like it's more of a when they hit that right offer, they kind of are buying into whatever program that may be. I'm kind of, you kind of start seeing more and more recruits, within this cycle where look at Tyler Gant. He was a guy that kind of came in that was on Wisconsin's list initially, and he just committed to Northwestern today. And that wasn't even a school that was necessarily in his top list initially to go for visits. He took a visit and he fell in love. And that kind of just seems to be like what is kind of happening with some of these guys like Keys and like Taylor. They know it's that type of program. They love the system. They once they see a practice or two, they just buy in. And I think their game is good enough to, maybe take an extra year or two to develop into something, but still great talent to add when it comes to when it comes to Wisconsin's program.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. It sounds like Wisconsin did hit on these guys pretty early. Wisconsin does have a track record of hitting these guys early. One example I can think of too is Grant Mertz. Grant Mertz, Wisconsin was one of his first, Power 5 visits or Power 5 offers. He says he commits to Wisconsin, and then he's got most schools in the country going after him. So I think, like Ben said, when a player gets that right offer, sees that right practice, talks to the right coach, I think they're sold early, and maybe they don't want the recruiting process to linger on and on. They just maybe go with their gut feeling, and I think we're starting to see that more and more.
No, I think that's a fair point. And I trust this is a staff I think you trust with their evaluations as well. I want to talk a little bit about Taylor now. We talked about Keys. Taylor, athlete coming in to play defensive back, probably a safety. Certainly has the flexibility down the road to shift to receiver if necessary. One of the things I really liked about his film, and I haven't been able to watch a ton of it, but he shows really good ball skills. And I think in our secondary, that's something our safeties have lacked for a while. Maybe going back to Tanner McAvoy, even that type of player. What do you guys think of Taylor coming in as a safety? Is that a spot that you feel like his skill set really fits into?
Yeah, I think with Taylor, I think a safety would be a really good position. I think he could fit in. And I was just thinking about it earlier today too. A good player comp could be another Tanner McAvoy. On the offensive side of the ball last year in high school, he had about 600 yards receiving, another 250 on the ground. 5 pass breakups too. So he does have a knack for the ball. His ball skills are awesome. And, and I think he is considered an athlete, and, Wisconsin bringing him in as a safety, who knows, maybe he'll end up, maybe even going to the wide receiver route. So I like the versatility that Taylor brings. And when I think of someone like that, I think of somebody like a Tanner McAvoy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the biggest thing for me with him is I was actually really surprised to hear from, with his most recent commitment, Cosgrove had a little sit down with him and mentioned the idea that, he's just going to play safety, and Wisconsin was like, that was their choice. And looking at his film as a wide receiver, I was like, man, I kind of wish Wisconsin would look at that a little bit more. But at the same time, there's always opportunities for special teams. He has experience doing that too. So maybe that's just something that Wisconsin's just going to evaluate moving forward. I know that we've, kind of mentioned this in, recent articles on our end that the safety position is a really interesting group right now. And so adding some depth within that position is going to probably be really critical, especially within these recruiting classes coming up.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Ben. I mean, I saw the same thing on film. I said, this guy almost, to me, looks like a receiver that we're going to be coming in as a safety, but the depth at safety is something that needs to be addressed. So I think it's a great point. We're going to, in our next segment, guys, we're going to jump into where do you think this class needs to hit on to be successful? A few more bigger picture 2023 questions. So, guys, we're going to keep Wisconsin sports heroics here. I say this all the time. Smart people, we try to keep them here as long as humanly possible. So they're going to be here after the jump. But first, today's show is brought to you, as always, by Built Bar. I told you guys a story yesterday. Built Bar, I got a new variety pack in. I got the birthday cake kit, the birthday cake Built Bars, their new flavors in, and my kids devoured them. My 3-year-old ate them like candy bars because they taste like candy bars. They're incredible. You almost feel okay. It's almost like I tricked them into eating healthy. Guys, Built Bar is the number one source for nutritional food that tastes good. You want to go back to it. I just ordered another 24 of them today off Amazon. I got more of the cake puffs, the birthday cake puffs, because they're incredible. And I also got some churro flavors because it's like a cinnamon marshmallowy chocolate. They are awesome. It's something that I throw in my backpack when I go work out. You will not regret it. And it's, again, a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. 130 calories or less, 17 to 20 grams of protein. Guys, go to built.com, promo code LOCK15. I did it today. Get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order. Thanks, guys, again, for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. Appreciate it as we try to build this Badger community. It's why we continue to have people on that are smart and engaging and know Badger sports, so we can get all sorts of voices into this Badger community talking sports. That's what it's all about. After you listen to us, go listen to NBA Locked On Big Board. Again, the draft is coming up. NBA Locked On Big Board is going to give you all your new NBA draft, mock draft, and player rankings. They'll have you covered. And that's what you're going to want to do after you listen to Locked On Badgers. And guys, we're going to bring Wisconsin Sports Heroics back on for segment 2. And I want to give you guys an opportunity. Where can people find your work? Definitely, what are you guys working on now? Pimp your work, guys.
All right. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Dylan Bluebolts. You'll find all my work on Wisconsin Sports Heroics. We're getting to the point now of the year where we're going to kind of start digging more into the recruiting battles, kind of looking breakdown of the schedules, maybe some bold predictions or anything like that. We got a great Badger team over at Wisconsin Sports Heroics. So yeah, you can follow me and at Dylan Bluebolts.
Yep, you can follow me at BennyBoy615. I cover a lot of the basketball content, so especially with recruiting and getting ready and gearing in for next season, the potential transfers and everything. That's where you'll see a lot of my stuff come out. So make sure, again, to follow us at Wisconsin Sports Heroics.
Yeah, and guys, they are constantly churning out content. A lot of post-spring football stuff that I've looked at, 3 questions answered, 3 reasons the offense will be better, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of content to digest, guys. It's great stuff. It helps you keep in the loop. So definitely go check them out. Guys, I want to continue on with the 2023 class. The first question I want to throw to you, both of you, is this is a slow start by really any measure. I'm of the opinion, tell me I'm wrong here. I'm of the opinion that this class is not going to be, from a recruiting ranking standpoint, very strong, partially because we had a lot of coaching turnover. There's not a strong in-state class. Am I wrong on that? Or am I sounding that bell a little too early?
I think I view this class right now is, like you said, it is moving pretty slow. I think a lot of the, not as strong of a in-state class is a big factor, I think, in this one, especially when, there's so much talent that's been around there. But I also think Wisconsin's addressing it in a lot of different ways. They're targeting a lot of really specific states. A lot of offers coming from guys from Illinois. Probably the most that they've done in a long time is going within there. They've gone down to Arizona. They've looked at some players out in California and even hitting a lot more on the East Coast as well. So this is a little bit of a different type of game plan for this recruiting class. And it is moving slow, but there's a lot of talent and upside, I think, that can come from it. It might not be their best that they're going to have, but I think the quality from what they get from these players in the long run, I think, is what's going to matter the most.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. With the recruits that they have right now, they're still ranked 40th in the country. So I think for a small class right now, I think that's actually in better shape than what most people might think. But like Ben said too, recruiting in different states too. They're getting a lot of 2023 recruits that they're kind of on right now in Arizona, Illinois. So I think it's a little bit different of an approach, and part of that could be coaching turnover. Losing Sahid Khalif, so kind of building the recruiting program again as well. So it is maybe a little more different of approach than what the Badgers normally do, but I think by the end of the day, I think we're going to be still pretty satisfied with what we get throughout the entire country.
When this class wraps up, what do they need to have done to make it at least a successful class? What position do they need to really hit still, or is there a specific player type they need to go after? I'll give you one of mine really quick. I think this needs to be a 2 running back class, and they're already halfway there. So I'm curious, where else do you guys think that this class needs to be when it wraps up?
I think for myself, it's right now, it's probably the secondary group looking mostly at corner. They put a lot of offers at corners, and a lot of different ranges from, even five-star guys all the way down to their normal 3 stars. But I think it's a group that really just has to start adding in. And I know like Wisconsin, when they focus on a group, that's when they really add in the position. So you'll probably see anywhere between 3 to 4 different corners that will come in this class. So that's probably the biggest position for me.
Yeah, I think corner is definitely a need as well. They did bring in 3 transfers, from the portal, but they're all grad transfers. And then you lost Dean Ingram over to the offensive side of the ball too, and you got Alexander Smith, who's a senior as well. So I think right now you got a lot of depth right now there, but we're going to be sitting here next year, and this could be a potentially razor thin group. So I think corner is definitely a group that they have to address in the 2023 class. I also think defensive line as well. I think, losing Keanu Benton, or this is going to be his last year. It is an older group as well, a lot of upperclassmen. So I know that they got in Curtis Neal, I believe, as an early enrollee, and I think he's going to make an impact as an underclassman as well. But I think that's also a position as well that the Badgers need to start. Maybe getting some offers out there, start talking to some more guys out there. So definitely the defensive side of the ball, I think, is for sure an area that we're going to have to address moving forward here with this class.
Yeah, Dylan, I think that's a great point. I don't think there's a defensive tackle and nose guard on the roster that can give you 80% of what Keanu Benton does if you project forward. We just don't have that wide body. I think we have some bodies that fit in there, but I think that's a great point. I want to hit you guys with some football hot potato, kind of some quick questions and answers as we wrap up the football section of this, because our next segment is going to be basketball heavy. And I haven't prepped you guys on this, so these are kind of some things I threw together. Who's more at blame for the passing game? Is it Mertz, or is it the passing ecosystem that he's been put in with the weapons around him and different coaches every year?
I would put it more towards the coaching staff. I mean, we see quarterbacks in the NFL who continue to struggle when they have, different offensive coordinators, different quarterback coaches every single year, it seems like. And I can't stress enough how important that it was for the Badgers to get Bobby Ingram in there as offensive coordinator. And I think that, having a coach like that for Mertz, I think we're going to see a different player in him this year. But he does kind of have to get going right now. He is, fourth year in a program. This is when you expect strides to be taken. I don't necessarily put a lot of blame on the wide receiver core. I think that's always been a group that's been talented. I know losing guys like Jake Ferguson, Kendrick Pryor, Danny Davis, I think that's going to take a little bit of time to get adjusted to. But I also like Keontez Lewis and Chimere Dike. DK is a guy that Mertz is going to definitely rely on as a kind of a go-to safe target. And I do like the potential that Skylar Bell and Marcus Allen bring as well. So I think it could be a little bit of a slower start to the year with the receiver core and Mertz, but I think by the end of the year, this could be a really good passing group and passing game in general.
Ben, where do you fall on that? More Mertz, more on Mertz? Because objectively, you could look at Mertz and say, Dylan, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think the ecosystem's been broken. But you could also objectively look at Mertz and say he was statistically the worst quarterback in the Big Ten last year. Right. So, Ben, if you had to point the needle 60-40 in one direction, nothing is ever 100% either way. We know that as fans. But if you had to go 60-40, which way are you leaning?
I would say if I was leaning anywhere, I would put it on Mertz just as the 60. But I think a lot of what Dylan said is a really great point. Wisconsin's also shuffled a lot of coaches, whether it be a quarterback's coach working with Mertz more directly, and just the changes now that we have with Joe Rudolph moving on to Virginia Tech. So we're bringing in Bob Bostad. I think that is probably the biggest change. Although it is a loss that we lost a guy like Joe Rudolph, I think Bob Bostad has a really great approach. And I think this is going to be a lot different than what we've saw in the last few years. So I think with those improvements, along with Graham Mertz and what he's done in this offseason, I think there's a lot of optimism and hope that we're going to see something different this year. And as much as I wanted Mertz to really develop the last year or two, and maybe he's taken that slower step, I'm thinking this year is finally it.
Okay. No, I could be on that. I think I'm more in line with you, Ben. I think it is about 60-40. But certainly, as Dylan pointed out, there's plenty of blame to go around for the catastrophic at times passing game Wisconsin's had. Two more really quick ones, guys. Let's make these quick buy and sells. Jump to the next segment. Buy or sell, Wisconsin will have 4 at some point next year. We'll have 4 new starters in the secondary with the transfers.
I'd say right now I'll buy that, mostly just because of where the depth in the position is. I think that there is a lot of good depth at the cornerback position right now, and I think that safety position is going to be good. But we're looking at a lot of younger talent, so I'm going to buy newer talent coming in following next year.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I'll buy it too. I think we're going to see a lot of guys playing corner. We may not even have a set starting, best 2 out there at all times. I think we're going to have a rotation of guys out there. Safety is also a good position to look at too, because there will be at least a new starter out there as well.
Last one for the offense or for football, buy or sell. And Dylan, you kind of got into this, but as a pass catching group as a whole, so receivers and tight ends, by the time next year ends, the group will be better than this year's version. So we're counting Ferguson into that receiver group.
Right now I say sell, just because a big part of that is the loss of Jake Ferguson. I don't think that's somebody that you can go in and just replace right away. I like what Eichenbach, Hayden Rucci, and all of them, what they can bring, but for the fact of not having Jake Ferguson, I sell that right now.
I'd also agree with that. I'd probably have to sell it as well. Most of it just because of the experience in the group right now. Not a lot of games where they're, seeing a lot of touches and everything. This is going to be really their first year that we're going to see them really get the touches other than DK. So I think this is going to be a group that's going to have to learn as they go. It won't be perfect, but I think we're going to see a lot better and stronger group when the year ends.
Sure. I think I'm going to buy it, but I am fully cognizant of the fact that there is no replacement for Jake Ferguson. I just tend to think the receivers last year just were a little underwhelming, and I like the physical tools of the guys in the room now. But certainly Jake Ferguson's an enormous loss. All right, guys, coming up, we got one more segment with these guys. It's awesome having them on, and we're going to pick their brain on the basketball side. Big visitor coming up, a guy that we think is probably, or at least I think is probably leaning Wisconsin. We're going to talk about where that's going to go and where it might end up. But first, we're going to get into our last sponsor of today's show. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. Again, BetOnline is one of our favorite sponsors of the show, one of our favorite friends of the show. This is a great time to go to BetOnline. Basketball playoffs are happening. I know there's some heartbreak in Wisconsin right now. Trust me, I'm a Phoenix Suns fan. I feel it too. But there's still lots of opportunities to jump on a new favorite. BetOnline gives you an easy-to-use website. They built a community around making all the sports news, sports wagering information easy to find and digest. And they also have Vegas games, all your blackjack, roulette, everything you want is on this one website, easy to use, simple to find. And BetOnline remains your number one source for futures bets as well. So the NFL obviously is coming up. If you have a hot read on the Packers, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Broncos with Russell Wilson, if you think the Bengals can repeat, there's really good money on them right now as the Bills are the favorites. So if you believe the Bengals get back to the Super Bowl, great time to take $5, have some fun. BetOnline, head to the website today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Guys, thank you again for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. We're going to bring back in Ben and Dylan for our final segment here, guys. I really wanted to dive into you guys with Gus Yalden. Okay, coming in. Decision is Tuesday. I mean, it's happening tomorrow, essentially, by when we're recording this show. I think he's leaning Wisconsin. I think would be an enormous commitment for the Badgers program. I'm really, really high on Gus. Ben and I, we talked about it on our show a little bit. I want to send it back to you guys. What would this commitment mean? And do you guys agree with me that all signs, at least currently, are kind of pointing to Wisconsin here?
Yeah, I know, like you mentioned, Ryan, we talked about Yalden in the last time we chatted, and I think this is actually the cards coming together. It sounds like, things when Yalden took his most recent visit, I believe it was May 3rd. It kind of seemed like that was it. Like the Wisconsin finally had that vote. I believe when he last spoke with the guys from 24/7 Sports, he mentioned possibly taking a visit out to Stanford, and that never ended up happening. So I think this is what Wisconsin's finally been waiting for with a commitment from Yalden. He's a dynamic stretch five that can really just be a great passer of the basketball. Guy can shoot from a lot of different spots. He can go down on the block. I think it's a great fit for Wisconsin just to look at a different and revamped offense and something where he knows the process that Wisconsin does working with big men. And Wisconsin has fully, invested and wanted to make that an emphasis with this class.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Ben as well, and I believe Ben and I were talking about Gus Yalden about a week or so ago, and we were saying how early in the process it kind of seemed like maybe he was leaning towards like a Louisville or program in the ACC or somewhere down over there. But I agree. I think Yalden's leaning towards Wisconsin. I think it would be a great pickup for Wisconsin. First of all, you're keeping in-state talent in Madison. And I think that's a really important thing to do. And they don't call him Baby Jokic for nothing. So they know that he can pass, he can get in the block, he can defend, he can shoot from anywhere on the court as well. In Wisconsin, having those guys, like a Frank Kaminsky or guys that can, pick and pop and can shoot the three. Traditional big men in college don't like to go out and defend at the 3-point line anyway. So I think the game that Yalden brings, I think he could be a potential mismatch for a lot of opposing centers in the Big Ten. And I think he could be an immediate contributor day one if he does indeed choose Wisconsin.
Totally agree. I think his game fits Wisconsin so well. And I also think he's in that sweet spot. We said it a couple times, but he's not the body type or the springy athlete that's going to leave in a year for the NBA, in my opinion. Like, this is a guy that you might have for 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4, depending on what his NBA projections fall out. So I just think it's a tremendous, tremendous home run pickup. Are there any concerns about either the body type, maybe defensively? Is there something that either you look at the film or you see maybe some mentions of work ethic type stuff? Anything that comes to mind for you guys with Yalden that makes you give pause to some degree?
I think the biggest thing is probably injuries. He's been dealing with a lot of different injuries and ones that have been pretty extensive periods of time. I think that's probably the biggest concern when it comes to him. I think maybe, defending is probably going to be a work in progress. I don't think he's had to manage a lot of taking, 7-footers consistently that are either bigger or stronger than he is. Which is whatever reason, just exactly what the Big Ten is, just those big centers that can just dominate on the block. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing he'll work on. But I think overall what he can do is he makes up for it with his quickness. He can find ways to, make a mismatch that doesn't seem as strong and overpowered by a guy, but find a way to maybe find like an open jump shot and create a little bit of space or find an extra man if someone is doubling on him. So I think there's a lot to like with him, but injuries is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I think injuries is kind of the one flag or flaw in his game right now. And when you go to Wisconsin, the expectation is to be able to play on both sides of the ball. And all of us, we watch the Big Ten every single night. We know how grueling of a league it is, and but it's going to take a toll on you eventually. So I think that could be potentially a cause for concern. Especially if Yalden is going to contribute and play a ton of minutes right away. But you look at his AAU tape, and it's hard not to like what he does on the offensive side of the ball, especially. I mean, he goes in there and he gets rebounds. He's not afraid to go up against guys his size and take him into the paint. Obviously, like Ben mentioned too, 7-foot centers in the Big Ten, that's a totally different ball game. So I think there's going to be obviously some learning curves and maybe some injuries potentially along the way, but there's so much in his game. There's so much in his game to like that. I think if he does go, I think we're going to be really excited to have him.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be a home run pickup for this team, quite frankly. We're going to finish off with a couple more quick kind of rapid fire buy or sell basketball things, wrap this basketball segment up. And again, I appreciate you guys so much for coming on. Best shooter on next year's team. It's tough, right? Because we don't really have many.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go Max Klesmit.
Mhm.
I think he's probably your most proven guy that is even coming in as a shooter, and what he can bring from that standpoint, just as a pure shooter. I think that would be my choice.
And I should probably
Yeah,
really
I
quick
would.
couch that as players that are probably going to play. Like Connor Segan may be the best shooter on the team. I think he can find some minutes, but I don't think he's going to play a lot. So yeah, I should probably couch it with shooters going to play significant minutes.
Yeah, Connor Segan, he could be the next Brevin Pritzel, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. But I agree with Ben too. I think Max Klesmit, him or Chucky Hepburn. I mean, Chucky's got the offense down, and we've seen that he has the potential to shoot, pretty consistently from beyond the three as well. But I think from a shooting perspective alone, I think it's Klesmit without a doubt.
Here's the next one. This one's. I find this question fascinating. I think we're going to wrap up on this one probably. Does Wisconsin have a star on its roster?
I would say probably not, but there's a chance. And I think that's Chucky, mostly just because of what he can do and how he changes and elevates the team. I think when you have a facilitator that can, be the one that can run the point and be effective, whether it's passing, whether it's shooting, creating offense, playing defense, getting in someone's face, having that type of player is something that we can see. I think it really shows in Wisconsin's game. I don't know if we'll have exactly, a star, but I say he's probably the closest that we're going to have going into next year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Ben. I think there's no, obviously no Johnny Davis or no absolute stud on this Badger team right now. But I think by the time we get into March Madness next year, I think we're going to be talking about Chucky Hepburn as not only one of the best big point guards in the Big Ten, but also one of the better ones in the country. I think he just does it on both sides of the ball, and I think that's rare to find in a point guard on the college end, especially for him, being only a sophomore now. You get a lot with your senior point guards and your transfer point guards, but now with a sophomore like Chucky Hepburn, I think he's the closest to a star as what Wisconsin has right now.
Yeah, my concern with Hepburn, I think he's always going to be a really good player as long as he's healthy, right? I don't think there's any question about that. I think he's already answered it. My concern with Hepburn, and I'm curious if you guys see this or if maybe I'm out on a limb on it. I think the athletic skills are a little below a star, like a really good Big Ten guard. Yeah, I just don't think he's long and tall enough to consistently get to the rim, and I don't know if I trust his jump shot enough to consistently hit open jumpers. So that would be my biggest concern if we're talking about him as like a star is can he score consistently enough when the best wing defender's on him? Because this year that was on Johnny Davis, and if it wasn't on him, it was probably on Brad Davison. So I'm curious. That's where I'm at with him. I'm curious if you guys see that, or if maybe if I'm overblowing that.
I think it's a fair point. I think the biggest thing that with Chucky is, like you said, I don't think we've fully unlocked what his potential could be within the offense. So I think there's still kind of like that open book of opportunity of what he could be. But from what the sample size is and what we know at least as a group right now, what the offense is going to look like, I think he has all the talent to do it. I think it's just going to come down to if Wisconsin can kind of finally unlock that extra level from him.
Yeah, I agree with the both of you guys as well. He wasn't really asked to shoot the ball consistently, last season. That was a lot of Johnny Davis and Brad Davison, but his strength, I think he's strong enough to get to the rim against most Big Ten guards. I think height might be a little bit of an issue too, it being only 6'2". But what he doesn't have in height, he sure makes it up by being a physical point guard too. And I think he's going to have every opportunity to be kind of a go-to scoring option. And from just what we've seen, just him being as a freshman, I think the scary part is that he's only going to get better.
Yeah, no, he's definitely going to get better. I agree with that. He's going to be a really good point guard for several years in Madison. All right, guys, I've already kept you for 35 minutes, which I think is more than I'm supposed to. So, listen, I really appreciate it. Everybody listening, please go check out Wisconsin Sports Heroics. These guys are awesome. We're going to continue to have them on the show as, again, the goal is to build this Badger community, get smart Badger fans on here and chop it up. So, guys, thank you so much. You guys already promoted kind of where your work is and where to find you. Is there anything else you guys are working on, or do you want to give your Twitter handles one more time?
Yeah, sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Dylan Bubolts, and you can also follow us at WI Sports Heroics. We're getting to the time summer right now, where I personally will be working on breaking down the schedule. Breaking down maybe some trap games, maybe breaking down some bowl predictions as well. But I mean, we're gonna have everything. We're gonna have game previews, game recaps, recruiting battles. Basically anything you want to know, anything Wisconsin Badger and Badger basketball, Badger football wise, we'll have it for you at Wisconsin Sports Heroics.
Yeah, you can also follow me at BennyBoy615. Again, big on the basketball, a lot of recruiting as well. So you'll see me doing not only just basketball, but football as well. Whether it's recruiting for guys that are coming in or guys that we may see coming up even in the later classes. So those are my biggest things, as well as game previews for upcoming season and in season. So we also do live tweeting for events, for games and everything. So make sure to follow us, WI Sports Heroics, and make sure to check us both out.
Thanks, guys, so much. Really appreciate the time. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Locked On Badgers, your first listen every single day. If you like the show, please feel free to leave a subscribe, leave a review. All that stuff really helps the show. And until then, guys, we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Really appreciate all the support.